So I feel good to be a South African actually today, under energetic ministers who are actually outshining the sluggards in that cabinet. Panyaza has no respect for Cyril Ramaphosa. So the EFF suddenly no longer appears when you look at the future. And by the way, I think that this is the beginning of the end of the EFF. They must fix the national logistics system, Transnet. Staff must move efficiently to ports. MK Party is not a sustainable project. It's actually held by Zuma.
Join us in supporting the Springboks when they take on the All Blacks at Ellis Park on the 31st of August 2024. We will be hosting exclusive hospitality at the Ellis Park Arena. Our hospitality includes pre-match analysis by international rugby players, lunch, drinks, Category A tickets inside the stadium so that you can enjoy the game right there. After the match, we're going to have live music, more food, more drinks, exclusive parking. What more could you want? If you want to join us and bring any size group, get more information below this video. Welcome to the State of the Nation. As you know, brought to us all by Pace Car Rental, doing a great job in keeping us on the air, and you're doing a great job by subscribing to the channel. If you haven't, we're coming after you. Subscribe, like, we've done all of our admin. Now, you asked for it, you got it, and that is for our favorite analyst, Prince Mashele. Welcome back to the State of the Nation.
Thank you very much, Mike, and greetings to our viewers.
Yes, now, Prince, we spoke quite soon after the election, just at the first beginnings of the Government of National Unity. We were very upbeat. You were very upbeat about the Government of National Unity and said as much at the time that it was the best outcome for South Africa. 2 months later, Government of National Unity seems to be gaining a little bit of traction, but there's been a lot of political movement since then. Let's start with the Government of National Unity. So far, is it meeting your expectations?
Look, I think the Government of National Unity, or call it a coalition government, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
I maintain my stance. It's the best under the circumstances. And so far, it has actually met my expectations. Remember what I said. I said you're going to get the lowest common denominator. In other words, you have the ANC on the left, center left, you have the DA on the center right, and in between you've got all manner of small parties, Rise, Mzansi, Patriotic Alliance, and so on. All of these parties, what they've done, they've pulled each other to the center. And if you look at South Africa today, things are actually stable. If you want to test my theory, do a mental exercise and say, what would South Africa look like 2 months after the elections if we had the ANC, MK Party, and the EFF constituting a government? I think South Africa would be a worse place. How do I arrive at that conclusion? One, MK Party is the highest concentration of people who are facing criminal charges, all manner of corruption, accusations and allegations. Would I want those people to be the face of my government? Certainly not. The EFF also is a very unstable, radical party. Whatever they stand for, nationalization of everything, including banks. By the way, maybe my bank account would be nationalized by now. So I think that if you look at a Government of National Unity, South Africa is in a better space compared to its potential alternatives.
One of the things that has been most noticeable about the government, and certainly the cabinet as we've seen it operating in the first couple of months, has been the relative energy and communication skills of some of the ministers from alternative parties. The only one from the ANC that seems to be matching that kind of energy seems to be Kgosientsho Ramokgopa, who has been very available and very responsive. But what do you make of the relative responsiveness of the alternate ministers from the other parties versus the ministers from the ANC? Are you starting to see that quite a difference in performance?
Look, before you had this government of national unity, you had a situation like this. Comrades from the ANC would sit at the union buildings and agree to do things. And they would do things according to the agreement. There was no energy in that cabinet. And the approach was to communicate a collectivist face. So this idea that you could have a minister who's shining because this minister happens to be brilliant as an individual, that kind of approach was not encouraged when the ANC was fully in charge of South Africa. What the government of national unity has done, it has changed that and turned that upside down. So if you are a brilliant minister, you shall shine. So if you take the ministers from the DA, Home Affairs, Public Works, these guys, they are clearly on a mission to demonstrate that they are better than the ministers of the ANC. One, they communicate with the public all the time, whatever they do. And you can actually see that there is positive movement in their portfolios. Whether you hate them or you love them, there is positive movement in Home Affairs. There is positive movement in Public Works, for example. Even Gauteng Mackenzie, by the way, he's making positive noises. You can see there's suddenly the Minister of Sports and Culture seems important. You are right, Kgosientsho is also doing a good job in terms of engaging with the public. But the rest of the other ANC ministers, they actually appear dead. So I'm very happy about it because there's competition within our government to deliver. And as a citizen, what do I want? I want government to deliver. So I think that it is a good thing. Maybe the ANC ministers at some point will wake up.
Yeah, certainly the feeling I get and the feeling I feel is the responsiveness within those ministries. You know, you used to have this crazy situation. I mean, only in South Africa could our most popular sport is football, and the Bafana captain gets shot to death in front of 10 witnesses, and no police minister will even talk about it for 10 years. You know, that lack of responsiveness we've become so accustomed to that it feels strange to have a minister like Gauteng Mackenzie, like Leon Schreiber, responding to a situation within their portfolios, in this case, you know, regardless of what our thoughts were on the Miss South Africa contestant, where it was a matter that you would expect some comment from the Ministry of Arts and Culture, the Ministry of Home Affairs, as to what went on. And we actually received answers. It felt very strange.
It actually feels not only strange, Mike, let's be blunt about it. It actually felt good. As a South African, I feel good that when there is a crisis, a matter of public interest, my government responds timeously and sincerely, and it tells us all the facts. That crisis was sorted out in no time. That's not how the ANC has been operating. The ANC has been arrogant. When there's a matter of public interest, they simply keep quiet and ignore the public. We would be debating on radio, talking and calling this and that, and they would simply pretend as if we don't exist. This time around, because there are ministers from other parties, we can see what an alternative government for South Africa would look like, as opposed to that of an arrogant ANC. So I feel good to be a South African actually today, under energetic ministers who are actually outshining the sluggards in that cabinet.
Now, not everybody is happy that you feel good about it, right? And not everybody in the ANC feels happy that people like you and I feel good about this government, because it is showing them up and it's causing some division in the ANC. What is your view about the ANC now that they've had a taste of the government of national unity? What do you think their attitude is towards the government of national unity?
No, I said this, by the way, before the elections. Let's go back there. By the way, my prediction, if you go back to the interview we had here, I had said the ANC would get 38%. And I remember the comments. People thought I was mad. Maybe I was mocking Dhaka now that it's legal. But look, the ANC is not sitting very far from my 38%. What did I say? I said after the elections, the ANC will be divided. They won't consolidate and come up with a united approach. They are divided. These people are fighting. That's what is happening in the ANC. And in fact, they have already begun fighting about the future. I mean, there's a whole thing going on now. People calling for Panyaza to be president of the ANC. I mean, we've just come out of an election. Already, some people are campaigning to be presidents of the ANC. So the fight is on. They are not actually doing damage control. They are entrenching themselves in their factional battles. And you see, this MK thing continues to poison matters in the ANC, because remember, people who are in MK, yesterday they were comrades in the ANC. They still have contacts in the ANC, including contacts in the EFF. So there is no effort on the part of the ANC to do real damage control and repair work. What is going on is an entrenchment of internal factional battles. And the whole thing is about whether Cyril has sold out or has not sold out. That's what is happening in the ANC. So this is good, actually. I've nailed my colors to the mast. The ANC has abused and destroyed our country for a very long time. If you look at the totality of the outcome of the ANC over the past 30 years, there is some good that they did in the first 15 years. But after that, the party went mad and they started destroying our country. So a party like that in an open democracy must be kicked out of power. The good thing about it is that the ANC is kicking itself out of power. So I'm very happy about the job that the ANC is doing to destroy itself.
Now, you mentioned the divisions, and nowhere is that division greater than in Gauteng, where, if you look at it from a different stance, Panyaza Lesufi is creating a separate state within Gauteng. He's got his own paramilitary. He's got his own social structures. He's got his own charities he's looking after. He's got his own. He's working the medical system as a personal fiefdom. He has defied national government and what they've been doing. What do you make of this move by Panyaza Lesufi?
No, it's not. You are correct, and we will talk about Panyaza Lesufi. This idea that there's one ANC is a fallacy. There are many ANCs. You see, Cyril Ramaphosa, as a leader, as the president of the ANC, has no control over his own party. Different provinces, regions, they do as they wish, and he can do nothing absolutely about it. So the ANC is so fractured, and the provincial leaderships are aware of it. So what do? They do what they want to do in their own little corners. Panyaza is a glaring example of that. There's a government of national unity which brings together the ANC, the DA, and others. Panyaza has decided never to bring the DA into that government of national unity, which runs directly counter to what Cyril has done at a national level. Panyaza has no respect for Cyril Ramaphosa. He has no respect for the national leadership of his own party. He's running his own little ANC in Gauteng. And by the way, there is a history of many ANCs. People forget. There was a time when there was a thing called ANC Yase Natal. The ANC people, if they read their own history, will find this. So the ANC does have this history of splintering and having different ANCs. So you are quite correct. Panyaza is busy running his own thing. Yeah, he's worried that the ANC in his province has lost support in a big way. I mean, it's sitting now at 35%. He can see that it's completely out, which is why what he's trying to do, by the way, he's running a personal campaign to promote himself as a person. Why? He wants to escape Gauteng. and be a leader at a national level, because you can see that the ANC in Gauteng is a lost cause. Why? Gauteng has the highest concentration of the middle class, black and white. And these are people who are very intelligent. They are sound, they are rational, they cannot be fooled by slogans. That's why they've been ditching the ANC, because they can see that the ANC actually has been destroying South Africa.
I suppose what people don't understand is that being in the middle class, as you call it, gives you agency, which means that you don't rely on government for everything. You can get your own solar panels, you can make your own plan, you can get medical aid. It makes you less reliant on the state, whereas some of these rural provinces, their dependence on the state is in some cases almost absolute. They're getting their money, their medical care, their retirement, everything is locked up with the state. If you're living a metropolitan lifestyle in one of the cities, there's a good chance that you have weaned yourself off many aspects of the state.
Look, here is the thing. The ANC as a party at some point has gone mad and forgotten its own mission. The ANC historically, its mission was, one, to liberate the majority of South Africans. And the majority of South Africans happen to be black, and they were oppressed historically, right? That's number one. Number two, to develop the majority of South Africans. And what does it mean to be developed? To develop means the change of status from being poor to middle class, and if you can, to be rich. There is absolutely nothing wrong in becoming middle class and in becoming rich. That is development. But the thing is, at some point, the ANC identified the black middle class as the enemy. They called us the clever blacks. And they were literally insulting us. But here is the thing. What is wrong in us becoming middle class? In other words, escaping poverty. Any civilized society would want to move its population from poverty to the state of development. And what that happens is that people become independent in many ways. They become independent financially, they become independent culturally, they become independent politically. And that means they can hold their leaders to account. That's what explains why the ANC is performing so poorly, mainly in urban centers. Why? The middle class can judge rationally, and they're ruthless. They say, you know what, we don't deserve this mediocrity that is leading us. Yeah. And we are going to exercise our right to decide who we want to be our leaders. And the middle class in South Africa are correct to be angry if you look at what the ANC has done. They have abused us, including taking electricity from our houses. I mean, we pay for electricity. You're sitting in your house. The ANC decide your house is good. There will be darkness in your house, even though you have paid for electricity. If you are rational, you are open-minded, there is absolutely no way you can support a gang like the ANC that has actually turned your house into darkness.
While we're talking about gangs, the big news recently has been the defection of Floyd Shivambu from his one gang to the other gang, because if the ANC wanted to rule every part of people's lives, then people clearly haven't read the EFF manifesto, where they're going to own everything, and you will, as I said to Carl Niehaus, you will own nothing and be happy. But this was, in a South African context, big news. Floyd Shivambu leaving the EFF and finding a home with Jacob Zuma. What did you make of it?
Look, it was big news for a reason. You see, even Helen Zille, let's bring Helen Zille into this, said that the future will be a contest between two colors, blue and red. That's how she was actually imagining the future. Blue obviously representing the DA and red the EFF. At some point, things look like that. So the EFF, that's why the DA declared the EFF to be its enemy number one, because they thought, this is a group of young politicians, they are radical and they are growing. At some point, the EFF was growing. So it looked as if it was going to grow. So when the EFF experiences the kinds of ructions that we have seen, the departure of Floyd Shivambu, it has to be big news, because what that represents, it represents an abrupt stop towards that menacing future. So the EFF suddenly no longer appears when you look at the future. And by the way, I think that this is the beginning of the end of the EFF. Why? The EFF was founded by two chaps. I mean, let's be blunt about it. These two chaps were expelled from the ANC and the ANC Youth League. That is Floyd and Julius Shivambu. These chaps were more than comrades. Julius told us they were like brothers, and they were friends, and the bonds of friendship were so tight. The one, that is Julius, knew his strength. It's a loud mouth, big mouth, and a long tongue. The other is Floyd Shivambu, the brain. He has a master's degree, this guy. Can think. He has mastered the art of political polemics. He can write 7 cardinals and all manner of rhetorics. Now, when that union between brains and a loud mouth comes to an end, that is big news. That means that what remains is hollow. There is no brain. It's a mouth and a face without a brain. So this represents the beginning of the fall of the EFF. And here is the thing. Even if you look at it numerically, there is no party that was formed after 1994, not one, that lost electoral support and regained it. Not one. Just look across. You will not find one party that did that. Even the ANC, by the way, when it reached a peak in 2004 and it began to come down, it never regained that support. So the EFF is not going to be the first party to regain support. And Julius, you can see, he's a very angry man. He has not persuaded his members, by the way. I saw that Grand Forces address. What he has done, he has instilled fear. And in a democratic system, South Africa is a democratic system, an open society. You cannot rule people by fear, because when they vote, you can't intimidate them in the voting booth. So the EFF is gone. Yes, it's big news because this is a stoppage of a potential future menace for South Africa.
Yeah, I likened it to the fact that if they were a music group, Julius Malema was the lead singer, and Floyd was the lead guitarist, and he gets a little bit tired of the cameras always being on the lead singer and the lead singer getting all the girls, till eventually he says, well, you got no music without me. I write all this music, and I'm leaving.
Yeah, look, here's the thing. This idea that you can be a deputy for life, there are very few individuals in the world who would be happy with that. We are told, by the way, even the religious people tell us that Lucifer was a trusted angel of God. I mean, the chap got tired of being God's deputy and decided to rebel. So this idea of someone getting tired of being a deputy comes a long way.
Yeah. And, I've always thought that if you're going to be a revolutionary party with fake military ranks and fake uniforms and things like that, if you want to be successful, you've got to start killing people. Right? Literally, if you look throughout history, if you're going to be a revolutionary party, there's no such thing as a peaceful revolution. Right? You're either going to have to kill people or you will disappear. What are you threatening? Yeah. What are you threatening? To shout louder, to disrupt more? That reach the end of its natural life.
Yeah, here's the thing. You're right. Your theory is right. But you're missing an important first step. The first step is you must capture power. If you don't capture power, how are you going to kill people? Because you need instruments of violence that you can use to kill people. You need the state. That's exactly how Hitler did it. So what did he do? He was a minority party, exactly like the EFF, by the way. The idea of wearing uniforms, his uniform was brown. He had to capture power first. And then once he captured power, he then used state power to kill people. So the EFF was not going to succeed because it has been failing to capture power. So that's why the EFF won't actually do what Hitler did. That's why I'm not scared of the EFF. And people said, but Prince, what do you say these things about the EFF? I said, but who are these people? They don't command the army. They don't command the police. How would they kill people? If they were to kill someone, they would be arrested by the state. So the EFF's weakness is that they have failed for 10 years to capture state power. And I can tell you, the EFF will never be the government of South Africa forever. If it happens, please call me back, but I don't see it.
But now, Floyd Shivambu did leave the EFF to go to an organization that is or was or seems to represent what was an army, Mkhonto we Sizwe. What do you think is going on in MK Party? Because they obviously outdid themselves at the last election and seem to have been at sea ever since. What do you make of MK Party 2 months after the election, as well as the move of Floyd into the MK Party?
Yeah, number one, I know that Umkhonto Wesizwe, the old one, the army, was celebrated in the context of the liberation struggle. But I can tell you, those who were in MK and who were in the ANC during apartheid know what I'm about to say. It was a terribly weak army. MK couldn't topple the South African government. For the rest of its life, it failed to topple the South African apartheid state. Couldn't match it. That's why the best it could be, it would be a guerrilla movement, infiltrating, sending a chap here with MK, this and that, to cause some...
to blow up a substation.
Yeah. But in terms of being a proper army, the MK of the ANC, let's say it, was a useless army, period. So for Zuma, who, by the way, was not a soldier of that MK. Zuma, as stated, was never a soldier of the MK. For him to be inspired by such a useless arm means that he has actually formed a useless party. Now, let's come to the internal dynamics. One, the headquarters of the MK party is in a private house of a man called Jacob Zuma in Nkandla. That's the headquarters of the party. So you can see that this thing is not a party. It's actually a family affair. How could you have a party headquarters being your private home? Everyone must come to your house to consult. That is the headquarters. So that's number one. Number two, this party contested the elections without any policies. The chap would stand wherever he wanted to stand and tell us this. Tomorrow another chap is telling us another thing. So there is no party there. What is there is the cult of personality. Jacob Zuma is a popular force in a section of South African society. In the main, in KwaZulu-Natal, electoral outcomes tell us that's where he is most popular. So number three, if you look at the leadership of the MK, the people who are attracted to the MK, the prominent ones, almost all of them are facing corruption allegations or criminal charges. So I am not surprised that Floyd Shivambu, who is facing allegations of looting VBS, when he leaves the EFF, the only natural home is this party called MK, where there is a high concentration of people who are facing corruption allegations. Where else? He wouldn't join a party of priests. He has to go to this party of people who are like him. Because when he's charged, then these people can organize a mob to go and toy and sing outside court. So it's not really a proper party. But here is the thing about him. What will happen to him in that party? One, MK, again, is a Zulu nationalist party. Hlophe said it, that the MK party is closest to the Zulu monarchy. So it's a royalist, feudalist party. Floyd is actually not a royalist and a feudalist in orientation. He has told us he's actually a communist. And communism, Marxism, and feudalism don't mix, actually.
Yeah, we've got to remember that they killed the Russian
exactly.
royal family.
The royal family, the Bolshevik Revolution. Yeah. So you have a very strange marriage here of a communist Floyd going to join a Tsarist organization like Umkhonto we Sizwe Party. So he's not going to last there, and he will be the most unhappy person in that part. What they will do, because they want to destroy the EFF, they will probably allow him to write a few policies. They will probably make him head of policy, maybe some prominent position in parliament, chief whip, something like that. But they will treat him with suspicion. He will never be at the core of those who are driving that party. He's going to be frustrated. My guess is he will not last in that party.
Now, if we see the dashboard lights flashing for the EFF and the dashboard lights flashing for MK, who have had a very inauspicious start to their parliamentary career, John Slaughter, to have a guy like that leading them in Parliament has been disastrous. He doesn't know the game. Clearly, they don't really have a plan. Everybody is unsettled because they keep on moving people in and out of the party. Together with some of the other little movements that align with them, ATM and a few others, they command about 25% of the electorate. That vote is going to go somewhere. I mean, the parties might go down the toilet, right? But the voters are going to have to vote for something.
Yeah, that's a very important question you're asking. And see, this is the thing that people are not seeing. South Africa is going through a moment of realignment in politics. What is a moment of realignment? I think we had this discussion before. The departure of a hegemonic political force that held society together. That is the ANC. The ANC is receding. It's dead. The next election, it will not get 40%. It will get under 40%. That hegemonic force is receding. Now, the EFF they imagined that there would be a replacement of that hegemonic force. It's very clear. They themselves are falling apart. MK Party is not a sustainable project. It's actually held by Zuma. Zuma is old. At some point, he will die. When he dies, that thing will come down like a house of cards. So what are you seeing? You are actually seeing the disintegration of blacks politically. That's what you are seeing. The only project that is intact is white politics, which is concentrated in the DA. That's what you are seeing. So that means with the ANC falling apart, the EFF falling apart, Umkhonto weSizwe falling apart, black people will have to come up with something new. That something new is not there as we speak, and nobody knows when it will emerge and what shape it will take. That something new, in order for it to be sustainable, it has to be a party led by the black middle class, the educated. And these people must represent the whole of black society, and they must be open to co-govern and co-lead with white South Africans. That, by the way, would be a replacement of the historic ANC. Remember, what made the ANC to gain legitimacy among blacks? It is because it was a party led by the black middle class, the intelligentsia, number one. Number two, it was open for white people to be members and leaders in that party. If anything that is going to try and capture that space, that will claim to represent black people, and it will say, away with white people, and that is going to insult the black intelligentsia, that thing will not succeed. Historically, any party that says we are a black party, whether the Black Consciousness Movement, the PAC, the EFF, all of them have not succeeded. Mngitama, all of them have not succeeded. Black people are liberal in character. So we are witnessing a realignment, as I said, and this something new will have to emerge.
Now, wasn't the advent of Action SA, Rise Mzansi, Build One South Africa, wasn't that meant to be the force that captured black middle class South Africans? And why didn't it succeed?
This is why it did not succeed. The leaders, the initiators of these projects, Action SA, Rise Mzansi, Bossa, you name them, none of them was willing to submit to the other as leader. Each one of them saw himself as a leader. So what happened? They fragmented themselves. They splintered the vote. So each one of them got a bit and a bit and a bit. What you need the black middle class who are humble enough to allow the most outstanding, the most intelligent, the most educated, the most charismatic to be the leader. And the rest of them must occupy different positions in that project. If they don't do that, they will not form this thing that I'm talking about. That is exactly the failure of Action SA, Rise Mzansi, and Bosa. These three should have come together to form one organization. If they did, my sense is they would have performed better than they have performed individually.
Do you think there's any chance that that still happens? I mean, obviously everything is shifting on the good ship South Africa. I mean, do you see those parties coming together? Have you seen them getting any closer post the election?
The problem is this. Once you try something politically and you fail, you lose the confidence of the public. These leaders, these three leaders, have now lost the confidence of the public. Even if they were to come together, they would not be able to re-energize the public. So they've actually lost and missed a historic opportunity. Look at all the attempts, COPE, Ahang, and recently Action SA, Rise Mzansi and Bosa. You can even take UDM, by the way. I think it was one of the first. All of them have actually dwindled. So in other words, what Action SA got in the previous election, it is highly unlikely that they will improve in the next election. Same applies to Rise Mzansi. Same applies to Bosa. So I think that you will need something new by people who have not lost public confidence. And those people, I have no idea who they are, but it will have to emerge down the road. Just like we didn't know that Songezo Zibi would be in politics 5 years ago.
Yeah. Do you see any chance that, I've had my run-ins with some of the leadership within the DA for suggesting that they didn't grab the moment. I mean, they did manage to hold on to their numbers and maybe make a small gain, but I think that there was a far greater opportunity that they've missed, in my opinion, in this past election. Do you think there's a chance that because of people's exposure to the work that they do, perhaps if they become a bit more palatable in terms of the way they look, that they could be the force that captures the black middle class?
No. If the DA continues to be a white party, they must forget it. They will never govern South Africa as a majority party, period. They can do that in the Western Cape because the Western Cape has its own dynamics there. You can isolate that. But in the greater South Africa, it's not going to happen. The DA will never capture South Africa for as long as people like Helen Zille still control it. The DA can capture South Africa if it opens up and they accept the idea that capable white people, white South Africans, can co-govern and be members and leaders of the same party with capable black South Africans. That's the only formula. Just like I said, any political party that thinks they represent black people alone will not succeed. Any political party that thinks it represents white people alone, it won't succeed. Remember, politics is like a mirror. This is how politics works. When you look in the mirror, you want to see yourself. You don't want to see another person who claims to represent you. So South Africans, when they look in the political mirror, they want to see themselves. What does South Africa look like? It looks black, it looks white, it looks colored, it looks Indian. That is South Africa. So any political party that doesn't reflect that will not succeed. The reason why the ANC succeeded historically, it is because at some point the ANC actually reflected South Africa. So the DA must forget it.
So let's say somebody is watching us today and they said, this is the cleverest thing we've ever heard. This is wonderful. I am a person that could be the new charismatic black middle class leader. What would your advice be to them? To join an existing party or to start a new party? Because obviously that calculation was made before the election, right? And that led to the birth of a whole lot of new parties, which clearly isn't the solution. What would you do if you wanted to get into politics to fix South Africa?
I'm a political scientist. So
yes.
I can suggest a formula.
Please suggest a formula.
I'll never be in politics. The formula would be this. If you want to go into politics, you've got two options. Option number one is to select a political vehicle from the existing political parties and join it and redirect it. That's how American politics works, by the way. Trump was never Republican. He looked and said, you know what, I need a vehicle. And he chose the Republican Party, right? So either you choose the Republican or the Republicans or the Democrats in the US. So in South Africa, you've got that option of choosing these existing political parties and redirecting these parties.
The problem is you have to fight your way through the structure.
That's exactly where I was going. If you do so, these parties are not going to open their arms and say, come and redirect us, because there are entrenched interests in these parties. So the likelihood of succeeding is very, very low. So you will fail. If you think you're going to capture the DA and redirect it, you are naive. Same applies to the ANC, same applies to the EFF and so on. So you are left with option number two. Option number two is develop a clean slate and say, here's a clean slate. I'm going to design a political party. These are the elements that must go into it. One, this party must be led by the most capable on the part of blacks. Must also be led by the most capable on the part of whites. And then you must look around and you must think of the future. Don't worry about old people who are in their 60s and so on. Those people don't represent the future. Look at bright young whites, bright young blacks, bright young Indians, bright young coloreds. If you want to capture South Africa in 2030 something, those are the people that you must put together. And you must have values that resonate with the rest of South Africans. One, South Africans don't want this idea of communism and socialism. So people who are calling themselves communists, they belong to the past. Must be very clear, market economy, right? You must be very clear that you must draw a picture of a future South Africa. Say you want South Africa to be like South Korea, for example, where there will be industries that thrive. People will have jobs. Technology will drive that economy. So you need to draw a script that will attract people towards that future. But the question of leadership in terms of who is part of that is very critical.
Yeah, I think there's as a non-scientist, there's a very simple test for that. And that is, if you could get people in a room and offer them one international passport, I'm going to give you one passport. And then that gives you the right to go and live there, work there, retire there, whatever. How many people are going to choose the passport of Venezuela or Cuba or Zimbabwe? Very few.
I can tell you, if you went to the Communist Party, Blade and Solima Paila's party today, and say, fellows, I'm giving you an option here. You are going to live in heaven or on earth. Here is a passport out. Choose a country. I can tell you, Blade Zimbabwe will never choose Cuba.
Yeah.
He will most probably choose
Scotland.
Scotland. He would probably even choose Dubai. Even the US, they will be surprise you. Because if you look at them, by the way, if you look at how they live, the communists in South Africa, they actually live like millionaires.
Yeah.
They actually don't live like real communists. They don't live like Che Guevara. No, they don't. They live like millionaires. So you are quite correct.
They'll do what Reedy did. You leave South Africa, you moan about the West, and then you go live in America.
Yeah, I mean, even the president of the ANC, by the way, right? Because the ANC has always defined itself as a disciplined force of the left, right? Aligned itself to the Soviet Union historically. But where was the president of the ANC, O.R. Tambo? He was not in Moscow. The guy was at the heart of capitalism in Britain.
So was Karl Marx, let's be fair.
Karl Marx, where was Karl Marx? Karl Marx was not in some communist backwater. And Karl Marx, by the way, how did he survive? Karl Marx used to receive financial support from his friend Engels, right? Engels had taken over his father's factory. So he was busy producing stuff, right, to generate money to feed this communist guy who was theorizing. So this thing about communism, even the writers of the Communist Manifesto actually didn't believe in it because they didn't live it.
Well, we know that to be true. Prince, I want to close off by the very important thing. This government of national unity that we're enjoying right now, if it is to survive, it needs to have some serious economic muscle and movement behind it, which we are. Yes, we've got an emotional bump from better sentiment, But, nothing practically has moved. We haven't opened more factories. We haven't created more jobs. What do you feel has to happen within the government of national unity right now, within the government? If they want to survive, which one would presume they do, we need a flourishing economy. What do you think is holding us back?
They need to do certain things, and these things are not very complicated, by the way. There are things they can't do, and they must not even try and do it. They need to address basics, and I'll list a few of them. One, they must get rid of load shedding forever, permanently. If you get rid of load shedding, you will have people with money in the private sector, in South Africa and outside South Africa, coming to take advantage of the availability of power and manufacturing stuff here. That's one. Two, you must make sure that there is security of water supply. Just water. Make sure that there is water. Once there is water, people will do their own things. People with money, they will invest. Three, they must fix the national logistics system, Transnet. Stuff must move efficiently to ports. If you do those basics as the government of national unity, the private sector will establish their own manufacturing staff to produce stuff and sell to the rest of the world. In the process, jobs will be created. Remember, in a real capitalist economy, it is the government enables the market to operate. The market will create jobs. And obviously, the government will also regulate to make sure that the market doesn't veer in an extreme direction and exclude the masses of the people. That's what they must just address the basics.
Well, let's hope that there's some politicians that are listening, and we certainly know we've got many of our subscribers and watchers that are going to listen to you. Prince, thank you so much for everything you've shared with us today. To people that love the State of the Nation, you're going to see quite a few changes over the next while. Beginning pretty soon, you're going to start seeing a few guest hosts. We also need to start changing and raising our game. So stay tuned for that. You're going to see a few really exciting co-hosts of State of the Nation as we start growing the channel into more than just a few random interviews with me. Prince Mashele is here. He'll be back. We're not going to stop. I'm not going to let anybody else interview Prince, but stay tuned to the State of the Nation. If you really want to get the news first, subscribe to the channel. There's a lot going on here. Thank you to Pace for supporting us. Prince, thank you for coming in today.
Thank you very, very much, Mike. I support the changes that are coming.
And we will see you again soon on the State of the Nation. Thank you.